critical vote is later tonight, third reading, when MPs vote on the whole principle, on the bill itself, the entirety of the bill. That vote's probably coming about 9:30. And last night, when you saw the rebel amendment, the support level that it had, particularly the first one while we were on air, it made you think, well, just maybe, they might defeat the entire bill. That is not what's going to happen. At second reading, they could only muster 26 abstentions against the bill. It could be that when you tot up all the numbers of rebels abstaining, voting against, it's of a similar order tonight. It's as if with these amendments, as one MP just put it to me, they'd sort of puffed their fur up like a cat trying to look bigger than it really is, and the fur has shrunk back a bit. That's certainly how some people around Rishi Sunak will define this moment in his political career. He saw them off, he held his ground and the rest of it. But what a lot of people are scratching their heads about, wondering is, well, what was the rebellion all about? One former cabinet minister just said to me, and he'd attended some of these rebel meetings, he said, I think a lot of it was people trying to make sure they can say, I told you so, when the bill doesn't work. But for others, he said, this was about trying to get rid of Rishi Sunak. A core of Tory MPs, not all of those who went through the lobby by any stretch last night, not all of those who will rebel on third reading later today, do want Rishi Sunak out. And when I asked one of them, surely tonight, after this moves to the Lords, he's into calmer waters, they immediately leapt in and said, no, the budget, we'll pick him apart on that. So his troubles are not over, but this particular one moves down the corridor now to the House of Lords, probably.
One of the dozens of arrivals today from small boats coming ashore at Dover briefly collapsed as he walked along the jetty. The first small boat crossing was spotted by a French government vessel at 4 a.m. this morning. A British Border Force boat then brought the migrants to Dover. The government intends all those picked up to be flown to Rwanda as soon as possible after its bill becomes law. Rishi Sunak was today still fighting to keep that process alive in the face of major revolts by Tory MPs.
We want to stop the boats, we have a plan, it's working, and with him we would just go back to square one.
He's got one party chair who says she hopes the Lords will rip his Rwanda deal to pieces. He's got two more who had to quit because they don't think it'll work. All of them appointed by him, all now in open revolt against his policy, each other, and reality.
In total today, you can track UK Border Force vessels intercepting 5 small boats and bringing scores of migrants ashore. While in the Commons, Tory MPs argued about whether the government was truly committed to ignoring injunctions from the European Court of Justice that could frustrate deportations.
We are being governed by a foreign court and judges who do not have our interests at heart. The decisions coming from that court are stopping us from controlling our borders.
The characterisation of a foreign court is, with respect, not helpful in these circumstances because it implies something alien. That's not the case in relation either to international law as a concept or to the court itself either.
To lure rebels back on side, the government this evening said it would change guidance for civil servants, instructing them to assist ministers at speed with deportations, even if the Strasbourg court had tried to injunct them.
The ayes to the right, 68.
Some of the 60 Tories who rebelled last night won't support the critical third reading of the bill. Some will rally back to the government side.
Third reading is a straight yes or no. Do we want to progress a bill that will actually help take forward the Rwanda plan or not? And I would say to colleagues, if it comes to that vote, there's only one lobby to be in, and that's the I lobby.
And you think an awful lot of those people who were with you yesterday rebelling will be with you tonight not rebelling?
I would suspect that a lot of people who want to see this plan, who did support an amendment yesterday, will be in the lobby making sure that the third reading is agreed.
When it comes to third reading, if the bill remains unchanged as it was from second reading, then at the bare minimum I will do what I've done before at second reading, which is to abstain. But I'm also leaving very firmly the option on the table to vote against if enough colleagues agree that that's the way that we should collectively go forward together.
Rwanda's President Kagame was at the Davos World Economic Forum. At one point he said Britain could have its millions already given for the scheme back if no one ever gets deported there. A Rwandan government spokesman later rode back from that. The factions on the right of the party, appearing last month as they mustered 26 abstentions against the whole bill, could shrink back to similar numbers tonight, having dented Rishi Sunak's authority, rubbished his bill, but not changed it.
Some people would say the project here is to make it perfectly clear that this is Rishi Sunak's policy. If it fails, it's not your policy. The failure's on him.
Look, Gary, we're not trying to run some alternative operation here to the Whip's office. What we're doing is asking colleagues where they stand on different views to get a gauge of where the mood is, as well as making colleagues, if they wish to, sign up to these amendments.
This third attempt by the government to deport migrants to Rwanda should soon start its passage through the House of Lords. Anger at their amendments could temporarily unite quite a lot of Tory MPs, but their deliberations could take months.
So why exactly is the government so keen on its Rwanda policy? Let's go over to Kieran in Leeds.
Thanks, Jackie. Now, the whole point of the scheme is not to send tens of thousands of asylum seekers to Rwanda, but to use the fear of being sent to Rwanda to deter tens of thousands of asylum seekers from coming to Britain in the first place. But surprisingly little attention is given to this question: where's the evidence it will actually work? And what the government says is that we have to look to what Australia did when it tackled rising arrivals by small boats by doing two things: not just sending asylum seekers to offshore facilities for processing, but also intercepting boats and turning them back. Now, Australia took this zero-tolerance approach in the early 2000s and again in the early 2010s. And each time, the number of small boat arrivals went down dramatically when they took that approach. But what was responsible? Was it offshore processing, or was it intercepting the boats and turning them back? Now, the Home Secretary was asked specifically about offshore detention in Australia last month and was categorical that deterrence works. But it's worth remembering that the Rwanda plan is not offshore processing Australia style. It means asylum seekers will apply for asylum in Rwanda to stay in Rwanda. Even so, is the way Australia offshored asylum seekers the evidence that the Rwanda plan will work? Not according to the Home Office, which admitted in June last year it didn't know which of the Australian policies, offshoring or sending people back to their home countries, had actually caused the fall to numbers. It's difficult to disentangle the impacts of the individual measures, they said, as well as their full applicability in the UK context. So where is the evidence for the Rwanda plan in the UK context? Last month, the Home Office's top official said we'll get the evidence not before, but after the Rwanda plan is in place.
We do not have the evidence that there is a deterrent effect for Rwanda yet, and I think it would be surprising if we did, given that it is not yet operational.
Now, the Rwanda plan is something of an experiment, whereas returns agreements are much more conventional but get far less attention. When a returns agreement was agreed with Albania, the number of arrivals to the UK from Albania fell 90% thereabouts in a year. And while we don't know for certain that's what caused the fall, returns agreements are a non-starter anyway with many other countries like Afghanistan and Syria, which are deemed unsafe. The Home Office told us it was confident the Rwanda plan would help break the people smugglers' business model and said plans to deter individuals from making dangerous crossings were already having an impact, with crossings down by 36% in the past year. But is that really anything to do with the Rwanda policy? As we've seen, there simply isn't evidence yet the Rwanda plan has already had a deterrent effect, or that it will have one in future. Jackie.
Well, we had been hoping to speak to a Home Office minister, but the amendments currently being voted on means the minister is now unable to leave the chamber. But I am joined by Conservative MP Robin Millar, who voted against the government last night. Thanks for coming out to talk to us. I mean, there seems absolutely no question now that the Prime Minister will get this bill through. What was the point of the rebellion?
Well, I think, first of all, we're still in the middle of that committee stage. There's still at least 4, possibly 5 votes to happen this evening, so I don't quite share your confidence that it is as certain as it is. Otherwise, what's the point of voting? But
I mean, that's what people will be asking. What are the point of the 60 MPs who came out to vote against the government yesterday? Because fundamentally, nothing has changed so far.
Well, this is democracy unfolding before people right now, and this stage, the committee stage, is exactly when these ideas get tested, when people say, I don't agree with this, I think this might need tightening, as I do. I think the bill needs tightening in some places, so I've put forward my name against several amendments. For example, closing down the avenues to a Clause 39 appeal, which is the Strasbourg Court's judgment, which stopped the plane from taking off in June 22. So those sorts of things, I think, need to be narrowed. That's why we put amendments. That's why we have the debate, and that's why we have the vote.
But there seems no expectation of those amendments getting through today. Everyone is saying that the critical vote is the vote on the third reading. What will you do?
Well, the vote on the third reading only happens if there are no amendments, and we are going through a process of voting on those amendments. So, again, I respectfully say that you have a certainty about it, which I just don't think exists. It may be that in an hour's time you can say, yep, I told you so, it was the key vote. But at the moment as we stand here, we're in that democratic process. Arguments are being held, conversations are being held, even as I came here now, walked past people. Conversations are being held, shaping colleagues' minds about that vote.
I understand what you say about the amendments, but the critical question for many people, for people watching from the outside who want this done, members of the public, they want to know this is done and finished and moving on. Last night we had 60 Tory MPs, 2 former Prime Ministers, 2 Deputy Chairmen resigned, seemingly taking a stand. They seem to make it clear today they would be voting with the government. You've lost a number of the rebels.
Why?
The likelihood of you winning on these amendments is slim. What would you do if these amendments
Why this
don't go
matters
through?
and why it's important is because people need to know that there are MPs listening to them. I think this is key. My own constituents often say, are we being listened to? Is your voice being heard? And this is absolutely nailed down, boilerplated evidence. Their voice is being heard. That's why we're taking it seriously. I came from that meeting of rebels earlier this evening, and I can guarantee it was serious, it was thoughtful, it was passionate.
Our political editor said that he had been told, basically, this is about people being able to turn around to the government and say, I told you so, this bill was never going to work, and that's all it's about.
I don't recognise those comments.
In terms of the damage done, even if this bill goes through, to the bill, to Rishi Sunak, there will be many within your party who say the rebellion in itself has been really damaging. Do you accept that?
No, I don't. I think actually this shows a confidence of leadership from the Prime Minister, because what he's done is he's given 2 full days in the committee of the whole House, that's on the floor of the chamber, to debate these points.
He's had
that
really
comes from a
senior members of
security.
his own party rubbishing this bill. So Simon Clarke today said this bill, even if it goes through, even if he gets it through tonight, will not work. And the last bit of this government's parliament will be spent trying to get a bad policy to work. It won't.
Simon's a colleague, I have a lot of respect for him, and I would disagree slightly with what he said, because it's not a question of the bill not working, it's a question of the bill not working well enough. The fact is that immigration, illegal immigration, is dropping. There are measures being put in place which this government is doing.
Not because of the Rwanda plan, that is the point, isn't it? Other plans have worked with other groups of people.
No, you misrepresent it. The Rwanda plan is very simple. It's to remove the disincentive for someone standing in a safe country to risk their life to try and come to the UK. So what this has done is it has evidenced that there's a robust debate within the Conservative Party. There are real Conservatives in the Conservative Party.
Seriously?
Please let me finish. And the chasm between our side of the chamber and the opposite. Because one thing I do know is this evening Labour will vote against it, and it will be probably the 87th, 88th time they have voted against measures we have brought to strengthen our control of immigration. That's the real issue.
Are you suggesting that this debate, as you characterise it, which has had senior members of Rishi Sunak's own party saying this is a bad bill, this is a bill that won't work, has not damaged him and the bill itself?
This is a very grown-up debate with very serious people treating what they hear from their constituents and believe about the country, taking it seriously. It may not be for the squeamish, but it is for those who believe in debate and testing ideas properly.
Very briefly, if you will, if these amendments don't get through, what will you do?
Well, then the question will be what bill are we voting through to the next stage, and it will go up to the Lords. It will be a third reading
What will you do?
vote. I suspect I will support it, and the reason for that was simply that it is a bill which does move things forward, but I come back to that phrase, well enough. I've challenged it. I don't think it will do it well enough. But if that's what my colleagues have basically said to me through that debate and argument, Robin, you've not persuaded us, I'm happy to go with them and support the bill.
Yes or no answer if you would. Do you see why the members of the public who see rebels coming out saying this is a bad bill and then vote for it anyway, do you see why that confuses them, disappoints them?
I would just encourage them to recognise the value of debate, and there are real Conservatives talking about Conservative issues and most importantly listening to the members of the public.
Robin Millar, we're very grateful. Thanks very much.